Thanks everybody for having us here to have this dialogue. Appreciate John inviting me to be his spokesstudent. Somewhat successful, I hope, in his eyes. So I'm going to address kind of my perspective as not a faculty person, but somebody that interfaces with faculty here, and what's involved in health informatics at UNC. So I'm a research analyst, that's my title, at NC Tracks Institute, just a building over Brinkhouse Bullock. Me in particular, I have ties to the main campus through ITS Research Computing. It's my home department technically. I'm on loan to NC Tracks Institute to be a research analyst. And the interesting part is everything that I work with in terms of data is in our hospital system. So the three unique silos, if you will, that I have to jump between, occasionally needing parachutes, but usually it's just a zip line. So I'm a product of this lovely shade of blue. No offense to the other one, I've worked with them as well, and enjoyed collaborating with them. So the one point I would make on just my background, there are two words there to look at, and one is this bioinformatics, which is one of Dr. Hemminger's department, and health informatics. They're two different subjects, and just to set the stage, make sure everyone understands that what we do in the health informatics program is not necessarily the same as bioinformatics, which is on the street somewhere. But they are very much related, and actually in the future they're going to be, I think, very much tied together. Bioinformatics deals more along the lines of cell biology, genetic analysis, those types of information topics, working with gene sequences, things like that. In health informatics, we kind of zoom up. We're not looking at the cell, we're looking at the patient. Obviously, what happens at a cellular level is important to the patient, but we're looking at holistically the whole picture. And as the future continues to join the two of them, I imagine that we, as health informatics practitioners, will have to absorb some of those things, and the two disciplines will be very intertwined. But primarily what we work with in health informatics are things that are related to the patient. So imagine you go to the doctor. Nowadays, you have usually some kind of electronic health record where they record, your blood pressure, your pulse, respirations, all that kind of stuff. And then you have your visit with the doctor and nurse. And at the end of the visit, they'll type up their nice little note about you, how you're a lovely patient, how they love seeing you every time. And this is typically a piece of text. It's a letter, a note. So those are the kinds of things that we work with here at UNC. Under the health informatics discipline is this new thing that's coming, which is the patient-recorded data. Everyone's got a cell phone, they've got a Fitbit, they've got scale at home that talks to the internet. So this is kind of the new thing in health informatics that is coming down the road, where physicians are going to start getting that data from the patient to add to the data that their professionals with their devices of calibrated professional quality to have this more constant stream of information from the patient. So those are kind of, if you can kind of think of how to delineate the two fields. I'm asking you to split them right now, but again, remember they do tie together. And lo and behold, where I work, we are really the intersection of that right now. Our motto is from the bench to the bedside. So Tracks, again, like this degree program, is multidisciplinary. It's all over the campus. We strive to take research that's done at the lab bench, we're doing the gene sequencing, drug discovery, that type of thing, and bring it all the way to the patient's bed to effect treatment as quickly as possible. So that's kind of where we get at this notion that while they're named differently, the future is that the two will join. I hate slides and I hate text on slides, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly and kind of hope to have a little bit of dialogue. So what do? I've talked about all these institutions and the 3 different silos. Well, the core of what I do is access data that is contained, owned by the healthcare system, the hospital. And that is in this large database called the Carolina Data Warehouse Health. Essentially, we have all of the health records of patients at UNC hospitals and surrounding clinics, starting 2004 to current day. And that's essentially anything that's been recorded in any sort of patient, nurse, or patient doctor, or patient provider, period, interaction. So we have access to a huge information repository. There are kind of 2 things that we have in there. One is structured data, if you imagine your Rolodex or traditional database. Numbers, lab values, things like that. And the other piece is unstructured data, which is what the clinician or the nurse, etc., social worker, they put into a note, which is in textual form, like a book that you can read. And I don't want to, I think Debbie will talk a little bit more about the unstructured data in terms of what she does, but we tend to focus more on the structured data, where we just extract information. A researcher comes to us and says, hey, we want to do a study on these types of patients. Can you find us the patients, or can you find us information about the patients? So we go in, do our data mining, provide them an extract, and along they go do their research, get their grant funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other piece which I am probably in our group the person that deals with it the most is unstructured data. And we do have some facilities where we do look at those notes and do projects with them. In particular, I think kind of to bridge to how health informatics and HSL can interact, that's probably one of the areas I think that would be significant overlap. For instance, you look at a patient disease condition and you want information about it, background. That's something that when you're designing in your tooling to extract this information out of those notes, knowing where, I need cancer ontology, or I need lists of medication terms. That's something potentially where librarians would have a good handle of the various resources for that, that for these projects could be of help. So by and large, kind of my perspective to distill it is I think that would be one opportunity for help. PubMed, I think, is going to be a significant resource in terms of doing these types of projects with the unstructured data. Marrying the data we have locally about the patients to, well, what are we seeing in clinical trials, best practices for searching PubMed, things like that, disease-specific research. So that's kind of my take in terms of what I do and potentially how people in HSL could interact with it. So largely what I do supports research. I also support hospital quality improvement. Not so much hospital operations. There's an entire group that deals with that. So all the things that John had mentioned kind of all roll up into this of what's actually happening, right there on the battlefield, so to speak, of health informatics. The other thing I would say is I have kind of, as a CHIP graduate, I try to foster student projects because I was a student once and was in need of a project. So over the years, I have tried to bring students to tracks and work with them. And they tend to work now in the second floor room that we have, a lovely room. Do the brainstorming there, we meet there, it's a nice quiet location. So that's kind of our home that we try and cook up these projects. Some of them working with clinical data, some of them working, they have challenges where they have a set of data and they ask a student team to try and do this task, do this information extraction task. So those are kind of the things where I think that those projects will be helpful for them to be able to quickly find resources. Like we're doing something with cancer, okay, well, what are all the different cancer resources, databases, et cetera, that we could mine, and then mash up with the existing data that we have. So that's all I have in terms of presenting to you. I'd love to take questions or clarify as you.
Has the cost gone down to pull the information? One time I remember hearing some scientists talk about, the cost of downloading the information and then being able to sort it because it's so massive. I assume that, that's improved. This might have been 5 years ago at the University of Florida.
We kind of operate in tracks on a fixed rate. We don't go by volume. We go by the complexity. Typically, tasks that we have are usually simple. That would be probably 90% of them that they can be done in 10 hours or less in terms of our time. The larger tasks typically have some kind of grant funding attached to them, whether it's all or not. So in terms of retrieval volume, that's not really the issue. It's how do you get at it. If it's something as simple as like, give me all the diabetics, that's great. Oh, well no, give me the diabetics that were seen on this day, in this day, had this procedure, did this, were excluded by that. That's where it tends to take up more time, more resources. The throughput is not the issue. I mean, I pulled gigabytes of notes and data, provided the system's not busy.
Okay.
Ashraf, is the data proprietary to the healthcare system, or do other schools across campus have access to that data in order to do studies?
They do. Essentially, we have a data use agreement internally at UNC where if you're a SILS researcher, public health, or anywhere, if you have a valid IRB with the university or an IRB elsewhere that's our university is blessed, you submit a project request and we can provide the data to you.
Is there a cost to that?
There is a cost when it exceeds approximately 8 hours of time. We do try and recover costs for even the ones that are lower, but that's kind of it's a touchy subject. We try to accommodate everyone. We try to definitely accommodate med students because they don't often have budget for that, and we know that they need the data.
When people download this, I'm assuming there must be some type of very strict guidelines, I imagine, in regards to how they're storing that or using it because of, the possibility of a laptop being stolen or something.
They sign an agreement where the data is to be contained in a specified network storage location.
Okay.
We're transitioning to it. I mentioned the 3 silos. ITS Research Computing has a secure research workspace where it's a sandbox. You can't take anything out of the sandbox. If you need to put something in to help your analysis, that's perfectly fine.
That's good to know.
So one of the things that I didn't do in setting this all up was to say that we're going to have a break after everyone speaks, and then we're going to do some brainstorming about the ways that we can